This podcast replay is brought to you by AccidentLawFirm.com. For truck, motorcycle, and rideshare accidents, call Bobby Nunez, 305-444-4407. AccidentLawFirm.com. We're going to have Brian Geltzeiler in just a minute here, the Hoops Critic. We'll have some fun with the Hoops Critic. I am dying to get his take on this because I absolutely love Adam Silver is one of those kind of commissioners that is a forward-thinking dude. When we were talking about gambling, he was the first guy to embrace it and find a way to work with it because you can't avoid it. Adam Silver is that guy that did not mess around with Donald Sterling, and then they come out with the way of kind of spicing up the NBA regular season. I love these ideas. I'm dying to talk to Brian Geltzeiler about this.
We have Brian for you, sir.
The Hoops Critic. Go to hoopscritic.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Hoops Critic. You can catch him also at Sirius XM NBA channel. Brian, good afternoon, my friend. How are you doing, sir?
Good, Orlando. How are you?
Can't complain, my brother. I got to tell you something. I saw this story, I think it was Friday, right before the weekend started, and I said, wow, this is, again, why Adam Silver is a hell of a commissioner. The guy is forward-thinking. Now, you may think it's crazy, and you may not like these ideas, but let's talk a little bit about these possible changes in the NBA regular season. First of all, that mid-season tournament, soccer-like style, adding a little spice to the regular season. Your thoughts on that?
I don't like it at all. And I'm going to tell you this. Listen, I don't like it at all because here's the problem I have with it, Orlando. Okay? How exactly is the NBA planning on getting players to care about that midseason tournament? And I get the games are going to count.
Money?
Hey, with money. All right, let's talk about that for a minute. With money. All right? They created a supermax in the last CBA that was designed to keep players with teams that drafted them and let players get these enormous financial advantages to stay with their teams, right?
Yes, sir.
How's that working out?
Yeah,
how's that working out? Is that working out so well?
No, but that's only a couple guys. But that's only a couple guys.
There's so much money in the game. Yeah, but if those couple guys don't care, what does it matter? Those are the top players in the league. It's a stars league. Those guys don't care. What does it matter? There's so much money in the game and so much money going to these players. What dollar amount are you going to designate that's going to make guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and to a lesser extent LeBron James and Anthony Davis and even James Harden and Russell Westbrook are pocketing over $40 million a year apiece? What kind of number are you going to throw at those guys that's going to make them care?
No,
so to me. And listen, I'm not negative on all of these ideas, but I don't like this midseason tournament. I think it's, and the other thing is this, I think it bastardizes the regular season a little bit. I really do. I think it takes the regular season and makes it about something that it's not. And so the midseason tournament listen, I hear you trying to think outside the box. I understand that they are trying in every single way here to see if they can draw in younger viewers, the Netflix generation, who, is very much on board with streaming and stuff like that, to make things more exciting over the course of a long regular season. And I know ratings are struggling. I get all that. But I don't think the midseason tournament is anywhere close to the answer.
Wait a minute. The regular season's garbage. The NBA regular season is the most meaningless regular season in all of pro sports. And all we ever talk about...
I actually would disagree with you.
Oh, come on, Brian.
It's so much more meaningless than the NBA. They play twice as many games in Major League Baseball. And if you qualify for a wild card, big deal. What happens to you? One game and you're done.
Yeah, I know. I know, but
to lose one game. So Orlando, I take exception with that statement. It is not the most meaningless regular season out there. The most meaningless regular season out there is clearly Major League Baseball to me.
Well, no, because they have they have a more variety of champions over the last 20 years than the NBA does. The NBA is the most predictable league. This year has been.
That case, Orlando. If you're going to make that case, Orlando,
but it's true. true.
Look at how many wild cards teams that have the best regular seasons in the league. How about the Dodgers this year? Dodgers dominated the regular season. Okay, but who won it? The Nationals, who barely snuck into the playoffs by the skin of their teeth. Go look back in Major League Baseball and see how many times that happens. A lot more. Okay, listen, the NBA regular season, if you go and you dominate in the regular season, odds are you got the best chance to win in the playoffs. In Major League Baseball, they might as well not have all this regular season, because once the tournament starts, it doesn't matter what you've done in the regular season. It's so meaningless. The Nationals were far from the best team in the regular season. They ended up winning it. You see this all the time. Wild cards are winning half the time in Major League Baseball.
But Brian, that's good.
Doesn't mean anything.
But that's good for the game. When you have a variety, of champions, it's actually good.
But that's a different argument, Orlando. What you just said is that the NBA is the most meaningless regular season, and you're wrong. It's not. The most meaningless regular season is Major League Baseball for the reasons I just gave you. So you want to shift the target, go ahead and shift the target. The statement you made about the NBA is dead wrong. The NBA regular season has as much integrity as most regular seasons out there, because if you look at the top teams in the league, that you want to tell me that once a team's one of the best teams, it's harder to catch and harder to have upsets, that's a totally different argument. But you can't say that the integrity of the regular season's not there. It absolutely is. Major League Baseball is a sport that doesn't have integrity in the regular season.
But what I'm saying is it's so predictable. That's why it's meaningless, because it's this year, actually, the NBA is unlike it's been in the last 30 years. It's not nearly as predictable this year, but normally it is very predictable. Very predictable.
Let's have that discussion for a minute. How many people do you know predicted the Toronto Raptors to win the title last year?
Well, a lot of people thought that they would get there with Kawhi now, right?
Well,
not win it.
Everybody. Matter of fact, last year the talk before the season was, let's not even have the regular season because the Warriors ruined the league by getting DeMarcus Cousins. That work out.
Right.
And that's why the argument that somehow it's the most predictable. Listen, if you can't have it both ways. You can't have the regular season that you want integrity and complain about it's predictable. But that's kind of where you're going here. You can't have that both ways.
No, but Brian, you're picking one year when most of the time, since I was a child, and I'm 53, I knew it was either going to be the Lakers or the Celtics in the 80s. And when the bad boys had their run, and when San Antonio's doing it, and when Kobe and Shaq are doing it, when we had the big three, it's very predictable, my man. It's been like that for a long time.
But you know what? Sometimes it isn't. And that's the thing about looking away. Look away, and what happens? 2011 Dallas Mavericks, who predicted them to go win the title?
No, that's right. They thought the big three would do it once in a while.
But you can't. But you're making two separate arguments here, Orlando. You made an argument to start this conversation that the regular season doesn't mean anything, and what I'm telling you, actually, the Major League Baseball regular season doesn't mean squat. Means nothing. Means nothing. Okay, because you see who wins the titles here. For the NBA, it means a heck of a lot more. Is there some predictability at times? There's no doubt there is, but there's also enough unpredictability over time. Listen, the 2004 Pistons were a team that no one saw coming. You get that. It
happens
NBA
once in a while,
and we have a year this year where we don't have an odds-on favorite.
Yeah, no, I know, but the other sports are mostly unpredictable, except maybe football with New England lately, that you can almost predict them to be in it. Now, getting back to this conversation of the changes, besides the tournament, which obviously you're not in favor of, and I am, because we always talk about the doldrums of the NBA and January and February and guys and all that stuff, so I would imagine that that's why they want to do this. How about the playoff seeds and the play-in games with 7 and 8 and 9 and 10? Are you for that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because I do think in that scenario, first of all, the teams that finish 7 and 8 get an advantage. But by expanding that out a little bit, you're going to create extra drama. You know, the league saw something that happened 2 seasons ago that was a great thing. They actually had, based upon where the standings were, a legit play-in game between Denver and Minnesota on the last night of the season. And it did great ratings-wise. It generated tons of buzz. It happened to have been a great game. If I remember correctly, I believe it went to overtime. And so the league looked at that and said, you know what a super idea. especially when you get a spot where sometimes teams at those lower two seeds, when you have some conference imbalance, are kind of just crawling in. So there's not a huge difference between 7, 8, 9, and 10. And the way they're setting up, I think, gives a huge advantage to the teams that finish 7, 8, which is what the right thing is. Where essentially, if you finish 7 and 8, you get 2 games to win 1 to qualify. If you finish 9 or 10, you get 2 games to win 2 to qualify. And I think that's the way it should be set up. Listen, I'm all on board with what they've done with the playoffs. As a matter of fact, listen, Bill Simmons of The Ringer proposed something years ago that he called the Entertaining as Hell tournament. And I thought that was fantastic, where you actually had 7 teams in each conference make the playoffs and then had a single elimination tournament from 8 to 15 in each conference to see who gets the last playoff spot. Oh. And it gives a little bit of extra rest to the teams that have qualified. I absolutely love that. This I like as well. Listen, I think
but you know what, Brian?
Playoffs. I like it a lot.
But I hate to interrupt you. The only thing I don't like about that it reminds me of the baseball stinking playoffs, is that after you played 82 or 162, you can't decide baseball and basketball in one game like football. You have to have a series. And I hate that. Like in baseball, I hate that stupid-ass playing game because 2 teams after 162 are deciding their entire season in one game. And in basketball and in baseball, you don't settle the best team in one game like in football. You can do that in football, but in baseball and basketball, you need a series. That's why
But it's not a relevant comparison in this way, Orlando. Here's the thing about baseball. How many teams make out of how many teams, was what, 30 teams in a league in baseball,
yes,
right?
12, I think.
How many teams make the playoffs?
12.
5.
Right? Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
That's right.
That's right.
3 division winners.
The odd, that's right.
2 wild cards.
That's right.
So 5 in these 10 teams total.
That's right.
In the NBA, you have 30 teams in the league. How
16.
many teams make the playoffs?
16, yeah.
16.
Right.
So if you want to do that with your bottom end teams, is that going to have a significant effect at what happens with your top seeds? It's not.
No.
It's not.
No.
In baseball, it does have a significant effect at what happens with your top seeds. Hence, look at the Nationals this year.
Yeah, but
baseball,
brother, don't you feel? Well, wait a minute. But Brian, don't you feel bad for like the 7 or 8 seed that they have 42 wins, and then the 15th seed has like whatever 25 wins, and they get on a little roll, and they get in the huh?
Beat a 6 seed. Should have played better. Should have won more games. No, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. Because if you're good enough, you go take care of your business, win those games, and move forward. That's the thing. It weeds out the men from the boys regarding the teams that are good enough. And yes, could it be a little bit fluky? Of course, it could be a little bit fluky. But we have to keep in mind that you're doing something here for entertainment purposes. And in the end, because the playoff is going to be decided by series. Listen, you can make the other thing with baseball that I think is patently unfair is a first round series only being best 3 out of 5.
I agree.
That lends itself to more fluky results as well. So the NBA doesn't do that. The NBA is going to do this with their bottom-seeded teams just to generate some more excitement at the end of the season, and I actually love this.
Now, the 78-game thing, is that just to eliminate a week to accommodate all the other stuff? Is that what they're doing? Because to me, it doesn't really make a difference whether it's 78 or 82 games.
I think that's actually a bigger deal, and I don't love it. And I say it in this way. And in the end, it's probably not going to move the needle a ton, and people are going to be okay with it. I just think when you look at what's happened over the course of NBA history, 82 games has been that standard bearer number. And when you compare historical accomplishments of what players do now versus the past, which is a very big deal for people that are hardcore NBA fans, I think those comparisons become a heck of a lot difficult. And I think there's a real fine line between making a material change to the tradition of the game and getting on board with evolution of the game. Now, listen, I look at something like the preponderance of the three-point shot and how it's invaded the game in the way that it has. That's evolution. That was bound. Things like that happen. That's the way the game goes. Things go. It cycles. So that I'm okay with, and that's something that's not going to change. Teams are playing with that style. But you go away from 82, it's tough. I mean, it really is. Listen, I wouldn't mind something if you really want to make it where you talk about players playing in less games. I wouldn't mind negotiating something with the Players Association. The NFL's discussed doing this, where we're going to still have teams play 82 games, but we're not going to allow a player to play more than 78 so he can preserve himself a little bit. If you want to go that way, I like that better than just less games overall all around.
Yeah, so that way, well, then we got no more Iron Man streaks anymore, right? That's going to die by the wayside now, Iron Man streaks.
It is anyway, right? Orlando, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. Luka Doncic, my brother, what kind of a freak is this kid? Holy crap.
Fantastic player. Fantastic player. And listen, he's 20 years old. He's been a pro since he was 13. The stage is never too big for him. He is not only has this incredible skill level, he is physically really imposing on a basketball court. He can get to where he wants, when he wants, and not with pure athleticism. Through skill, change of speeds, physicality, he knows exactly what he's doing. And the interesting part about that team is, listen, up to the large majority of this season so far, that's been Team Luka. They are 11-5 because Luka Doncic has been an absolute monster. But something's starting to happen there that really could help them be a team that can hang around in this kind of spot the majority of the season, if not all the season, and that's the fact that you've seen in the last couple of games, Kristaps Porzingis starting to play a little bit better. Kristaps Porzingis for this season has looked like a guy that absolutely sat a year and a half. He's looked rusty. He's not looked comfortable. Movement-wise, he hasn't been crisp, but it's starting to come around a little bit. And if Luka has got that kind of partner to be able to feed, to complement him, to run pick and roll with, to throw, you saw him throw a great lob to him last night, a guy that can block some shots inside defensively. Dallas becomes lethal. Listen, there's not a lot on Dallas besides Luka and Porzingis. And I'll tell you this, with some of the contracts they have, they could be an active team at the deadline. Be very interesting to see what they do at the deadline if they continue to play at this level. Seth Curry fits what they do well, but again, there's just not a ton there. I don't know if in the end they can advance in the playoffs, but Luka Doncic right now is here to stay. This is a guy that I will tell you, by the time he hangs it up, we'll have won multiple titles and we'll have won multiple regular season MVPs. This is a guy that is on his way to being an all-time great and may end up usurping Dirk Nowitzki, who was a guy that was his teammate last year, as the best European player ever to play in the NBA.
Brian, the only thing that team needs to do is kind of steal a page from the 2010 team, that they were a better defensive team, and that's why they beat Miami. Miami just didn't have enough people to kind of match that. They had their offensive guys. They just didn't have enough people around them because you're counting on Mike Bibby and stuff. They need to get a couple guys that can help them get some stops every once in a while. They can score, but they've got to improve on the defensive end, right? I mean, that's really what they need if they're going to ever make an impact and go deep into that Western Conference playoff run.
It's a good point, Orlando. And here's the problem that they have. They need a 3D guy. They need the guys that are toughest to find in this league are the kinds of guys that they need. They need somebody that's a shutdown defensive player and that will knock down three-pointers at anywhere from a 37 to 40% clip for them playing off the ball with Doncic. That's what they need. They have Seth Curry, and Seth Curry's a wonderful compliment for Doncic because Doncic is big enough to obviously to defend wings, and Curry, who's not a point guard, but actually will be competitive defensively with point guards and plays off the ball offensively off of Doncic, is a nice fit there. They need another 3D guy. They're trying to kind of shoehorn Dorian Finney-Smith in there. Tim Hardaway's not that guy. The problem is around the league, those are the hardest guys to get your hands on. Those are guys, teams have them, and they don't want to part with them. So it's going to be very interesting to see who they go after and what they decide to do. The other thing is, listen, do they have enough pieces to go get somebody? They traded a bunch of first-round picks to the Knicks in the Porzingis deal. What do they really have? Is somebody going to want to give them one of those types of guys for a package that's led by a Jalen Brunson? I'm not sure. I don't know that is something that plays out for them. And Dallas is, with trading the pick for Doncic, and don't get me wrong, it was the right move to make, but trading a first-round pick for Doncic and 2 for Porzingis, they're kind of bereft of trade assets right now.
All right, Brian Geltzeiler joining us, the Hoops Critic. We'll wrap it up with this, Brian. The Miami Heat. It's interesting that Pat Riley's always been the guy going after veterans, making the trade for now. And unfortunately, as much as I love Riley, he made some terrible decisions the last 3 years with those contracts. But I love the interesting dynamic. What's saving his butt right now is 4 young guys that they added to this team in Hero, Nunn, Duncan Robinson, and even the Silva kid. The injection of youth has really made the ultimate difference for this Heat team and their start.
Well, I think you have to also look at the genesis of that youth, Orlando. Miami Heat's player development program has always been a step above everybody's. And what they've been able to do here is develop guys, and even it goes beyond those guys to the extent that they came up with the idea of making Justice Winslow a point guard, point forward type of player. And that has been something that has driven so much of what they've done in terms of who they've brought in. Because Winslow in that role, with his ability to guard wings, makes Kendrick Nunn useful in the backcourt to them because they can put Nunn on smaller guys. He's a scoring guard that is a smaller scoring guard that they don't have to worry about him defending wings. The other thing is, listen, bringing Jimmy Butler on board is a big deal because these young guys are learning how to do it. And for Jimmy Butler, it's fit in or fit out. And he's a guy who embodies the Heat's whole culture in terms of work ethic. And so if guys don't want to keep up with Jimmy Butler, you're nowhere on this team. So you look at how all that goes around. Listen, getting rid of Pat Riley has made a wealth of free agent mistakes here over the course of the last couple of years. Jimmy Butler's not one of them. But even bringing in, James Johnson signing to that money was not the right move. Waiters we could talk about till we're blue in the face. His biggest mistake, his biggest culture mistake was Hassan Whiteside. Hassan Whiteside was a guy that was only about him. They paid him all that money after a year where he showed up late over 40 times. Amazing. And so getting Whiteside out of there, kind of marginalizing Waiters here, and Waiters gave him every reason to. Johnson gets sent home for showing up not in the proper shape. There's statements being made. And kids like Tyler Hero, who wants to just beat Jimmy Butler and learn from Jimmy Butler. Listen, Bam Adebayo I picked before the season started as the most improved player in the league. And he's certainly in that conversation right now for the way he's played. But all of that speaks to the same thing that I get back to, the Heat's player development program. Plus, there's somebody else there who's been an unsung hero in Miami's early start and early success, who has fit into a role that he hasn't done in many, many years, and he's doing it in a contract year. Goran Dragic right now, you look at 6 men of the year, Goran Dragic's got to be up there. He's playing fantastic in that role. And what's happened to this, and listen, my NBA weekend partner on Sirius XM NBA Radio, Sam Mitchell, taught me this, and he's 100% right. When you bring players off your bench on an NBA team, if you want them to be effective, they have to give even if they play the same, they're obviously going to play the same positions as guys you're putting on the bench, they have to give a different look from that position. So when you're doing things like having, whether it's Nunn and Butler, Winslow and Nunn, but you have Jimmy Butler initiating offense or Justice Winslow initiating offense with Nunn off the ball, with Hero off the ball, and then you go to Goran Dragic off the bench, who's more of a ball-dominant type of point guard. This is what keeps defenses out of rhythm because they're getting different looks all around. And listen, Miami's done a fantastic job up and down the line this year. And the thing about Miami, you look at certain starts teams have had and you scratch your head, is it sustainable? I worry that the Mavericks is a start that's necessarily sustainable just because it's been so much of it's been Team Luka. When I look at Miami and how it's gone for them, all of this is very sustainable for them.
Oh, I'm with you all the way. Brian, I forgot to ask you, how high or crazy are they in Portland that they trade for Whiteside and then sign Melo? They just lost to Cleveland. I mean, that's bad. I don't know what they're thinking in that front office because neither one of those guys was going to be the answer to their ills.
Well, all right. So let's take a look at the way they processed this and how they went. Let's start with Whiteside. We'll get to Melo in a minute. What they did Orlando regarding Hassan Whiteside is that they're without Yusuf Nurkic for the first half of the year. Okay?
Right.
So they needed a short-term solution at center. Whiteside is an expiring contract. Their intention was to take one of their young players, a future pick, and Whiteside's expiring, and go out and shop for one of the big forwards that is most likely going to be available here at the trade deadline, namely Kevin Love or Blake Griffin. That was what they were looking to do. But what's happened to them is that they've had, Lillard banged up. They traded Harkless, okay, because they wanted to bring in a first-round pick from the Clippers, which they did. Okay, they decided not to pay out Farouk Aminu. Those two guys were there, besides Nurkic, were their two best defensive players. So think about what happened to this team. Their three best defensive players from their season last year, where they went to the conference finals, are off the team. And the problem that presents is that the two guards they have, Lillard and McCollum, are guys that aren't great defensive players, that need to be hidden. So you took their bodyguards, essentially, and shipped them out. Decided you didn't want to have him back. So what's happened here is they brought Whiteside in. Who's been Whiteside? He's come as advertised. And their thought was they were going to be able to move him and maybe a Zach Collins. And what happened to Zach Collins? Zach Collins is hurt and is going to be out till after the trade deadline now. So now if they want to do something, it comes down to maybe moving Anthony Simons, who's a really good young player and looks terrific, and they don't want to move. So they've made moves looking one move ahead to try to upgrade the roster to be with the best teams in the West, and some things have happened to fall through. What Melo is for them is he's a Hail Mary. He's an absolute Hail Mary. They don't have anything going on at that position. They realized very quickly that guys like Bazemore and Hezonja were going to offer nothing to them, whether at a wing or a stretch four. So they figured Melo is, and I don't think they're wrong. Melo's got to be an upgrade from that. If they can get Melo to rebound a little bit, he'll help them some. The bottom line is this, though. I think what you may see is if they're not going to be able to make that kind of big deal at the deadline that they plan to make, I think what you're eventually going to see from them is actually, I think they're going to go young and try to kind of rebuild this thing around Lillard and make a CJ McCollum deal somewhere. I think that's something you could see them to truly change the mix, because I do think Lillard and McCollum as a backcourt together, as much as people like to thumb their nose at NBA defense, I just don't know that defensively you're ever going to be what you need to be to advance past where they've advanced with those two in the backcourt together.
He's always excellent. He is the Hoops Critic. Brian Geltzeiler, follow him on Twitter at Hoops Critic. Go to the website, hoopscritic.com, and you can catch him on Sirius XM NBA Radio. Brian, as always, you are studly, my brother. Thank you for taking some time. We always appreciate it.
My pleasure, Orlando. Look forward to doing it again soon, buddy. Take care.
You got it, baby. Be good. There you go. Brian Geltzeiler, the Hoops Critic. I love it. Good stuff. Good conversation with him there.